I just saw the SK booth, right? It's a Korean company at CES. And it was
Yeah.
unbelievable. I mean, they called it SK Wonderland. I mean, the exhibit space looked like a theme park. It was unbelievable. It's massive, right? Carnival-ish, right? Theme park-ish. At the end of the day, you can get lost in all that. But what they were doing was they were transforming you into a new world, because that's what theme parks do. When you go into a theme park, when you go into a carnival, they transform you into a different world than what you're used to. Well, the world that SK wanted to convey to their customer is a world that's more sustainable, a world that has less pollution, and a more green world. So what did they do? They built SK Wonderland. The whole place was built, all the engagements, the visuals, everything tied back into sustainable, less pollution, and green. So it's like, I can't emphasize enough to people, what is the message that you want your customer to hear? What do you want them to know? Again, value prop, problem solved, the solution, your messaging, and then come up with the ideas, then come up with concepts and themes. Don't just come up with a theme just for the fun of it. It's got to tie, it's got to make sense, it's got to be conversational.
And I think on that point too, one that we did this past year, same chemical company that we were just talking about, but a different avenue of them.
Yep.
And their tagline that they were going with was knock out common beauty threats. And that was like
Yep.
the tagline that they wanted to go. So we basically came up with this whole concept about superheroes, about the company being superheroes, and then the threats being like bacteria, pollution, right? That's going to mess up the chemicals to knock them out. So those are the threats and like the villains. So it was like superheroes versus villains theme. And honestly, the graphics that they did on the booth were just so impactful. You know, there was
Yeah.
a selfie station that had like cutouts that you could take pictures with, but like other than that, the graphics that they did on the counters and on the back wall, you know, it was a 20 by 40 booth, so it was a little bit larger. So they had some room to play with, but the graphics were so impactful and visually stimulating that they were able to really tell the story with this. It caught your eye when you walked by. It was superheroes versus villains. You know, they didn't have to go all out. They didn't have a, did you say they had a carnival ride in that SK Wonderland?
They did. They had
Yeah,
an actual
right.
carnival ride. Yeah.
Which is great,
Crazy.
but you know, everyone's not going to have the money to put that in there. So you can
Yeah.
also be visually impactful with just the graphics, and then when they come up,
Yeah.
you know, tie it back.
Didn't they have actual characters? Like they actually created different characters for this?
They did for like their teams, like their chemists and account
Mm-hmm.
managers. They
Yeah.
made them into superheroes, and they had like cutouts of them on the wall where you could take a picture with them, and then they actually put them on the graphics, and then they
Yeah.
made like bacteria, the threats that they're saying that were the villains. They made little cartoon characters out of like bacteria pollution, and those are also incorporated on the graphics everywhere.
So what I really like about that when I hear things like that is I think what it does in a case like that, it sparks conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're trying to do at a trade show. You're in person to spark conversation, to have conversation, to be face to face. So if you have a superhero theme, right? Probably to a person walking out, it wasn't like super obvious as to what the theme and
Right.
how it tied to them was, but you walk up and you're like, hey, why do you guys have superheroes on your wall? Or hey, why are you doing this? Or why are you doing that? And what it does is it now makes it easier to have a discussion because you're talking about superheroes, but really what you're talking about with superheroes is the message that you're trying to deliver to potentially an ideal customer. And it ties back. So you're telling a story, right? And you're giving them an experience with superheroes. So like I said, storytelling and experience, people remember it. So
Mm-hmm.
you're being stickier with your customer at the end of the day.
I agree.
The other thing that I was thinking about that I think really is like something that not enough people are talking about with this is like, this is all just marketing. That's it. You know, so as event people, I think one of the biggest problems that they have is having to put a marketer hat on all the time. That's
Mm-hmm.
all the time. So one of the things that I want to make a point of is I know most event people, they're really not marketers at heart. Like all the stuff that we're talking about, value prop, problems you solve, your point of view, storytelling, narrative, messaging, like that's all marketing stuff. But trade shows and events are sales and marketing. It's what they are. So I think as an event person, you either have to brush up on it, you have to get your marketing department involved, you have to take what they give you and run with it, but also you have to start thinking this way when you go to an event, because I think this is what it really takes to be kind of like uberly successful at these shows. It's how you stand out. It's how you differentiate. It's how you engage in better conversation, is thinking this way and kind of pushing the boundaries with your brand, your product, your service, and all that good stuff. I think one of the cooler jobs that we did last year, as an example, one of our clients was with Security Central. They are a security monitoring company. So they are like the people that are answering the phone when you have a fire alarm, a burglar alarm, right? They're kind of like that call center. They're like dispatching, doing all that. So through conversation with them, we kind of came up with this idea as we've rounded out, like, what are they about? What do they want the industry to know about them? What is the message that they want? And we ended up designing them a house, not anything earth shattering, but I mean, the trade show booth did not even look like a trade show booth. The trade show booth looked like a house. And then it had like windows looking in, and the windows had graphics. It looked like a family. What was it that with the protection thing? We were talking about it earlier, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
protect what you love or something like that. Like they had a certain
Or their
a
slogan is was,
tagline.
yeah,
Yeah.
protect what you value. So then when you
Protect
said
what you
like,
value.
the graphics that were facing the aisle and you looked at them, they looked like windows with like a family inside of it. And then
Yeah.
one area was like a retail store, right? For like businesses, how you said they do houses and businesses. So, what do
Yep.
you value? And then, we did this big custom roof structure on top. That was like the hanging sign that really, brought the whole booth together. And like you said,
Yeah.
nothing earth shattering, but, you take a roof when it had like little windows up at the top, and then it could be a house, it could be a business, protect
Yep.
what you value. And then they did the graphics on the outside that looked like you're looking in business or a
Yep.
home. And then we even did a walkway, like a door walkway that you walked through.
Yep.
That
Everything
you were
was
coming
themed
in.
around it.
Yep.
And I think after talking to them, I mean, they were ecstatic. Like they drew more interest. They had better conversations. They drew more leads from the show. And it was so simple. And at the end of the day, like they could have just done a nice structure and put their branding on it and had it look good. And they could have put their messaging on there about security and, protect what they could have done that. But why not take the extra step? Like I've seen it time and time again. It works. It draws more interest. You are there to stand out. You are there to differentiate. And it's like just going up with a standard looking exhibit, even if you think it's a nice design, you're a parody in a sea of exhibits. Like you just are. I don't care how good you think your structure is. You have to come up with a theme. You have to come up with concepts. You have to do something different that's going to spark conversation and something that you can really stand on. And that exhibit absolutely looking like a home and then everything tying into that entire theme, I think it helped them with their conversations. I think it helped them get noticed on the floor. I think it had people, they're a pretty household name, but they still had people coming up going, oh, I didn't know you guys did this. Or, hey, what are you know what I mean? It just sparked, just made everything go better, I think, at the end of the day.
I agree. And it looked awesome.